Imagine waking up one morning, not to the sound of your phone alarm, but to the smell of raw sewage in the streets. You reach for a glass of water and realize there is no running water, no electricity, no antibiotics, no grocery stores, no Google. Congratulations! You've just time traveled to the Dark Ages. And here's the twist: you probably won't survive a week. Welcome to a world where death is everywhere, hygiene is a joke, and your knowledge of the modern world might just get you accused of witchcraft. This is the story of why someone from the 21st century, yes, even you, would be completely and utterly destroyed by life in the medieval Dark Ages. Let's start with something simple. You're dropped into a medieval village. The first thing that hits you isn't a sword, it's the stench. People in the Dark Ages dumped their waste, human and animal, right into the streets. There are no bathrooms, no showers, no deodorant. People bathe maybe once a month, if they're fancy. You, the time traveler, with your squeaky clean standards, are now ankle-deep in medieval sewage. Your immune system, it's completely unprepared. You've never been exposed to these bacteria. The common cold back then is not your common cold. It's a full-blown medieval flu, and it's looking at you like lunch. But don't worry, it gets worse. Let's talk food. Or rather, the lack of it. There are no supermarkets, no freezers, no Uber Eats. The average peasant eats bread, porridge, and maybe, some stale cheese. Meat is a luxury. Spices, forget it. You ask for gluten-free or organic. That gets you laughed out of the village square. Also, hope you like your bread with a side of weevils. Yes, actual bugs. Because grain storage is primitive. Everything's infested. You won't just be hungry, you'll be malnourished. And drinking water. It's either from a stream filled with dead animals, or beer. Yes, even the kids drank beer. Not to party, but because water could kill you faster. Let's say you get a scratch. Just a tiny scrape. In 2025, you'd rinse it with antiseptic and slap on a band-aid. In the Dark Ages, that scratch could mean a fatal infection. There are no antibiotics, no vaccines, no painkillers. Got a headache? They might drill a hole in your skull to release the demons. Toothache? They'll rip the tooth out with no anesthesia. Mental illness? Possession by evil spirits. Even if you're in a castle with access to doctors, their treatments include bloodletting, leeches, and burning herbs under your nose until you faint. If you break a leg, you'll never walk right again. If you catch the plague, well, you just became a statistic. Let's say you've made it past the first few hours in a medieval village. You're shivering in a flea-ridden tunic, trying not to vomit from the smell of rotting waste in the streets. But now comes the real challenge: surviving your first winter. Forget central heating. Your home is a wooden hut with gaping holes between the planks and maybe, if you're lucky, a bit of straw for insulation. Temperatures can plummet below freezing, and you're expected to simply deal with it. That means piling on damp wool, huddling near a smoky fire, and hoping you don't roll over in your sleep and set the straw mattress on fire. Oh, and that romantic snow you love from holiday movies. It turns into slush, then ice, then disease. There's no vitamin D supplements, no electric blanket, and certainly no DoorDash bringing you hot cocoa. You eat what you stored, if you stored anything. Otherwise, it's boiled turnips and moldy bread, or nothing at all. Famine was a regular winter guest. And don't think you're escaping the cold with a hot bath. Water freezes in the buckets. Indoor plumbing doesn't exist. You're bathing once a month, if ever, and doing your business in a hole outside, even when it's snowing. Sick? Of course you are. Coughing, shaking, burning up with fever. There are no antibiotics, no doctors, maybe a local wise woman with dried herbs and zero actual knowledge of germ theory. If you die, and many did, your family buries you in frozen ground. If they can dig deep enough. Welcome to your first Dark Ages winter. Still think you're built different? Let's talk about personal hygiene. You're used to hot showers, shampoo that smells like coconuts, toothpaste that leaves your breath minty fresh, and even toilet paper with triple ply comfort. But in the Dark Ages, forget it. The concept of bathing was basically optional. Not weekly, not even monthly. Sometimes, it was once a year, if that. Water was often considered dangerous. It spread disease, after all. And you couldn't just turn a faucet and get a clean, steamy stream. You had to drag water from a freezing river, heat it over a fire, and then reuse that same murky tub for the whole family. And guess who got to bathe last? You. In a brown-grey broth of everyone else's grime. Now let's talk about toilets, or the lack of them. Most villages had simple pits outside the home, or you'd just squat in the woods. In castles, there were guardrobes, essentially holes in stone walls that emptied into a moat or a cesspit below. Yes, that same moat knights swam through in your favorite movies. It was a toxic soup of human waste. Toilet paper. Nope. You'd be lucky to find some dry leaves or a ragged cloth. Some people used hay, sticks, even shells. Enjoy that visual. And deodorant. Body odor was so normal it was hardly noticed. If you smelled like onions, sweat, and smoke, that was just life. Your clothes. Likely made of wool, scratchy and never truly clean. Laundry was rare, and soap was a luxury. Your underwear, if you had any, was made of linen, and you wore the same set for days, or weeks, until it disintegrated. Teeth. You'd better believe they were a mess. There were no toothbrushes. No floss. No dentists. People might brush with twigs or cloth, and if a tooth went bad, well, they'd just yank it out. With pliers. No anesthesia. No antibiotics. Just screaming. Now picture being a 21st century germaphobe. You carry hand sanitizer, avoid touching doorknobs, and complain if the public restroom is out of soap. Drop that same person into the Dark Ages. They'd pass out before breakfast. Fleas and lice were everywhere. Bathing didn't happen often enough to kill them off. Most people had sores, scabs, rashes, or infections that just stayed. No one looked healthy. Everyone was in a permanent state of mild rot. So no, you wouldn't be able to rough it. You wouldn't adapt. The stench, the filth, the crawling parasites, you'd probably go insane in a week. You don't know how good you have it until you try to scrub yourself clean with sand, sleep next to your own chamber pot, and eat with hands that haven't touched soap in months. Let's say, somehow, you've survived the filth, the food, the disease, and the disbelief. You've dodged the plagues, made it through a winter with no heat, and even found a way to drink the water without vomiting your soul out of your body. But here's the last truth bomb. You still wouldn't make it. Because the Dark Ages didn't just strip away technology, they stripped away mercy, justice. There was no such thing. No Miranda rights. No appeals. If someone accused you of witchcraft or thievery, you'd be subjected to what they called trial by ordeal. Sounds dramatic, right? Here's how it worked. You could be thrown into a river with your hands and feet bound, and if you floated, you were guilty because you were rejecting the holy water. If you sank, innocent. Oh, but then you drown. Whoops. Or maybe you'd be forced to hold a red-hot iron bar and walk a few steps. If your hands didn't heal cleanly in a few days, guilty again. It wasn't justice. It was roulette, with your life on the table. Punishments were public and brutal. Stocks, floggings, amputations, not just to punish, but to teach everyone else what happens if you step out of line. It was terror as theater. Even your appearance could get you in trouble. Act too educated. You might be accused of heresy. Speak with a strange accent. A foreigner, possibly a spy. Know anything about medicine or herbs. Which, in the Dark Ages, survival wasn't just physical, it was political, social, and deeply psychological. Every move could mean death. Speaking of knowledge, if you thought your degree, or your knowledge of science, history, or medicine might help, prepare for a harsh truth. Books were rare. Literacy was rarer. In fact, books were handwritten by monks, one painstaking page at a time. It could take years to copy a single Bible. The average person never saw a book in their life. And if you did try to explain, say, quantum physics or evolution, you'd be branded a lunatic. Or worse, a heretic. You see, knowledge didn't empower you back then, It endangered you. And even if you found a place to live, it wasn't much of a life. Privacy didn't exist. People slept on straw with entire families in one room, sometimes even sharing it with livestock to stay warm. Hygiene, still laughably absent. Bugs, lice, infections, they were just a part of everyday existence. You'd be constantly cold, constantly tired, and constantly dirty. No fresh socks. No hot showers. No toothbrush. No Netflix. Just endless toil, and the fear that tomorrow could be worse. Now imagine war breaks out. And it often did. Raids. Feudal skirmishes. Rebellions. Your village might get burned down by some angry lord on horseback just because his cousin didn't get enough land in a marriage deal. There was no Geneva Convention. No human rights. Surrender wasn't always accepted. Prisoners were often mutilated, or just executed outright. In war, cruelty was expected, not condemned. Still hanging on. Here's the final nail in the coffin. You'd lose your mind. Not because you're weak, but because the isolation from everything you know would fracture your sense of reality. No one speaks your language. Your ideas are incomprehensible. Your values, freedom, rights, equality, tolerance, they don't exist yet. You'd be alone in a world that doesn't understand you, and doesn't want to. You'd be a ghost in history. And in time, you'd stop fighting it. You'd forget the modern world ever existed, and become one of them, silent, obedient, and afraid. The truth is, the past wasn't built for us. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't noble. It was brutal, suffocating, and relentlessly cruel. So the next time you fantasize about the good old days, just remember, they weren't good. And if you went back, you wouldn't last a week.